That means hemoglobin, which has 4 heme center, can bind 4 oxygens, and myoglobin, which has 1 iron center, it can bind to 1 molecule of oxygen. So now let us come and take a look into the oxygen binding curve again. As I said, hemoglobin is a tetrameric structure, that means it has 4 protein units, each protein unit has 1 heme, each heme can bind 1 oxygen. So altogether hemoglobin can bind 4 oxygen molecules. Myoglobin is a monomeric structure, only 1 protein center, 1 heme, and it can bind to only 1 oxygen molecule. Now myoglobin, we look into back it again. So it binds with 1 oxygen. As we are producing more pressure of oxygen, it is going to bind there and reaches to the maximum saturation for the myoglobin. But hemoglobin, what we are seeing, that at low pressure of oxygen, it is not binding at all. That means what it says that the oxygen binding to these 4 heme proteins in a hemoglobin are somehow connected to each other. Suppose they are all independent. Each of the heme proteins present in the hemoglobin can bind 1 oxygen molecule together at its very similar to myoglobin. Then we are expected to see a similar kind of curve we are seeing for myoglobin. But in hemoglobin, what we saw, a lag period where the oxygen does not bind pretty well. That means it is saying that at low pressure oxygen does not bind to this iron centers very well, and as it is not binding to any of the iron centers, it is also affecting the others hemes to bind the oxygen centers. So this kind of system where binding of oxygen to one subunit of the heme is affecting the others, like in hemoglobin, is known as cooperativity effect. That means all these 4 sections of the proteins are working in tandem for this oxygen binding, and that is known as, very importantly, the cooperativity effect. Now take a look into how this cooperativity effect actually comes into the place. So again I am showing you the deoxyhemoglobin, and once it is bound to the oxygen, the oxyhemoglobin. Now I am showing you through the plane of the porphyrin ring. So this is the porphyrin ring, this is the 5th ligand of the iron, the histidine. Over here, before the binding of oxygen, the iron stays in +2 oxygen state, and not only in iron +2, but it is also in the high spin +2 oxygen state. You know again the high spin and low spin system from the coordination chemistry. And iron +2 in high spin state is quite a large atom. It has a size ionic radii of 78 picometer, and that size is a little bit bigger so that it can fit in the binding pocket of the porphyrin. So that is why over there you can see the iron center is hanging a little bit lower than the plane of the porphyrin ring. That means it is not very strongly sitting in the middle of the porphyrin ring in the same plane, it is sitting a little bit on the lower side. And then what happens? The oxygen binding. Once the oxygen binding happens, there is a 6th ligand coming from the other hand, so that there is a bond formation between the oxygen and iron. So obviously this bond formation will try to pull the iron on the top, but that is not all the case. During that binding with oxygen, iron changes its spin and oxidation state. It goes to iron +3 low spin state, and due to this shift of spin and oxidation state, it shrinks down. It shrinks down to now 55 picometer, and with this size now it sits very nicely in the porphyrin ring. So over here you can see the iron is sitting in the middle of the porphyrin ring. So this oxygen binding, not only binding this iron and providing a strong bonding, but also changing its spin state and oxidation state, and it is pulling the iron to the porphyrin ring. So this is the big difference when we are talking about the deoxy versus oxy form. And during this pulling up of iron, this 5th ligand, the histidine, also get pulled up because it is bound to that iron. Once the iron get pulled, the connected histidine also get pulled up over there. So this full movement is happening when the oxygen is binding to the iron. Now what is happening on the other hand side? Yes, the oxygen is binding over there on the other hand side, but there is another histidine dangling over there. So there are 2 histidines around the iron center. One directly bound to this iron, this is called the proximal because it is close to the iron, and the other one hanging way beyond the iron, which is not directly connected to the iron, and it is known as the distal histidine. Once the oxygen comes and bind, this distal histidine stays very close to the oxygen and forms some hydrogen bonding, and this hydrogen bonding stabilizes the oxygen during the binding up to the iron. So once the iron binds to the oxygen, it gets pulled up, and the histidine over there, it is also helping to this movement because it is stabilizing the oxygen adduct over there. So through these two binding, the movement of the oxygen and binding to the iron makes sure that the iron get pulled up into the porphyrin ring, and along with that proximal histidine also gets pulled up, and distal histidine over there is stabilizing the oxygen adduct. Now over here, when you are talking about this histidine, the proximal and distal histidines are not hanging on its own. They are part of a big protein chain, and when the oxygen is binding, the size of the iron shrinks down, it gets pulled up. The distal histidine is helping the oxygen binding through hydrogen bonding. Not only this histidine bound to the iron gets pulled up, but this histidine connected chain, the protein chain also get pulled up. So this all together, this oxygen binding, when it is pulling the iron, it is pulling the proximal histidine bound to it, and also the protein chain bounds to it. So it is a huge movement of the protein structure is happening during the oxygen binding. And why it affects? Because now if we look very closely to the hemoglobin system again, where we have 4 different subunits. As I said, these 4 different subunits come and bind together. So how they are interacting? They are interacting through some bonding interaction on the surface or the boundary of the 2 different subunits. Over here I am showing you those interactions. Those interactions are mostly hydrogen bonding and salt bridge interaction. Salt bridge interaction means there is a protonated system, acidic, and there is a basic system where they would interact through some ionic interaction and produces some strong bonding. So this kind of bonding happens between the alpha and beta subunits present in the hemoglobin. And what happens? This interaction makes the hemoglobin structure very strongly bound, all the 4 different subunits. And now what happens when we try to put the oxygen over here, and this oxygen binding pulls the iron pulls the histidine bound to it, the proximal histidine, and the proximal histidine bound protein system also get pulled up. But on the other hand side, they are tethered with the other subunits through this hydrogen bonding and ionic interaction, the salt bridge interactions. So then there is a competition. The oxygen binding will try to pull the iron out along with the protein chain, and the protein chain on the other hand side have some interaction with the other subunits. So there is a competition between those 2 interactions. And then what happens? A overall change in the geometry and the dynamics of the protein when the oxygen binds. So that you can see over there through this cartoon. Over here you can see this is the hemoglobin showed in this reddish part under this circle over here, and this blue one is the oxygen. So you can see oxy and deoxy, when it is happening, the iron is pulling up the cysteine, and this yellow system is trying to change. That changes the blue chain, that changes the other reddish chain and the pinkish chain on the back. So it is a cascading effect. Once the oxygen binds, the iron get pulled up, it pulled up the protein chain, that protein-protein interaction get destabilized all over the overall system, all over the hemoglobin system. So that is the main reason of this cooperativity effect. How? Let us take a quick look. So as we said, once the oxygen binds, it tried to pull up the iron into the porphyrin ring, it will pull up the protein, and at the same time the protein already had some interaction with the other part of the subunits, and they has to be destabilized. So there is a competition going on. If you have to break or destabilize some of this interaction of this hydrogen bonded and ionic interaction or salt bridge interaction between the subunits, you have to give enough energy. Binding of oxygen gives some energy, but that is not good enough if only one oxygen bind, because all the subunits are connected all together. So one oxygen binds to one of the subunit, it tries to pull off the iron, but it has to make sure that dynamic changes all over the protein structure, and one oxygen binding is not good enough. So at that stage what happens, the hemoglobin will like to stay all this strongly hydrogen bonded and salt bridge interaction between all the subunits, and that is called the tensed state. So the first oxygen binding is not going to change the system. So that's why at lower pressure of oxygen, the hemoglobin doesn't bind oxygen pretty well. Then comes the second oxygen. It gets a little better because now you are putting the energy of 2 iron oxygen bonding to change the overall dynamics. but still it cannot overcome the overall barrier bound to this change in the dynamics of the 4 subunits of the hemoglobin. So, even at the second oxygen binding, it is not good enough to create a very good oxygen binding. But the third oxygen binding changed the game. The third oxygen binding gives enough energy through this iron oxygen binding, so that that energy can tilt over the overall tightly bound subunits of the hemoglobin and make them to a new dynamics, and over there they stay in a more relaxed state. And this third oxygen binding, as you can see over here in this graph, happens in the sharp rise. So, this sharp rise happens when the third oxygen binds, and once the third oxygen already bound and relaxed it, the 4 oxygen binding will be very favorable. So, that 4th oxygen binding happens very easily. So, that is the overall reason for the cooperativity. It connected with the oxygen iron interaction, the movement of the iron to the porphyrin ring, movement of the proximal histidine connected to the iron to the porphyrin towards the porphyrin ring, and that proximal histidine bound to the protein structure is connected to the other subunits through hydrogen interaction, hydrogen bonding interaction and salt bridge interaction. So, all these things play together altogether. So, that is why binding of oxygen to one subunit, it get affected by all others and vice versa. So, that is what is called as the cooperativity effect, as we told you earlier, and the other name of that is allosteric effect. And this kind of allosteric effect you can only find in hemoglobin, because there are 4 subunits, and subunit interaction is the main culprit behind these interactions. However, in myoglobin you will not see that, because myoglobin there is only one monomer, there is no question of other subunits interacting together. Okay? So, that is the main reason we see cooperativity effect only in the hemoglobin, but not in the myoglobin. So, the take home message for this section, there is differential oxygen binding between hemoglobin and myoglobin. How we find it out? Through these oxygen binding curves. Myoglobin is hyperbolic, whereas hemoglobin is sigmoidal, and this whole system is due to the oxygen binding, change of the oxidation and spin state of the iron. It gets pulled up in the porphyrin ring, the whole movement of the protein and interaction or competition of that with the hydrogen bonding and salt bridge interaction between the other subunits. And this cooperativity effect only observed in hemoglobin, not in the monomeric myoglobin. So, this is the end of this third segment.